Bratislava. 1968. Article published in the newspaper Ziriak. November 16, 1976. The history of international relations in recent years is full of many plots hatched up by the imperialists and social imperialists against the freedom and independence of the peoples. Some have been carried out and the whole world has already seen how terrible they are. Others remain as projects locked away in the strong rooms of military staffs and in the top government chancelleries, awaiting the set hours or suitable times. Meanwhile, others are being hatched up in the sinister bargaining which is carried on by the secret diplomacy and the intelligence and espionage agencies. The contriving of plots is the strongest instinct of imperialist wolves, is that field of banditry which, more than anything else, fires the crazy dreams of enemies of the freedom and independence of the peoples with the lust for plunder and incites in them the unhealthy spirit of military and political adventures. The only concern which these gentlemen have now is lest their plots may be revealed prematurely and the peoples learn what terrible things are being prepared behind their backs. The whole arsenal of gangsters' treachery and perfidy, cynicism and lies, sweet deceptive words and lullabies. Bratislava 1968. To put people to sleep is fine for their morality. Indeed, when the imperialist and social imperialist chiefs come out from their meetings and speak about fraternity and collaboration, about general peace and permanent security, then watch out, because they have the trap set and the dagger drawn. We all remember the tragic events in Czechoslovakia in 1968, which no one can forget. They're a major lesson of history. On August 3, 1968, the revisionist chiefs of the Soviet Union, Bulgaria, Poland, Hungary, the German Democratic Republic and Czechoslovakia gathered in Bratislava at a meeting which, as they said at the time, was in the tradition of routine consultations. In the documents and the communiques were signed according to all the rules which the pompous ceremonies, political frauds, and the masking of military attacks require. The participants kissed 3 times as is the custom of the Holy Russian Church and had photographs taken as souvenirs for their successors. Facing the cinema and television cameras, as the whole world was to watch, the Soviet revisionists and their lackeys almost smothered in their embraces Dubin, the most eminent representative of revisionism with a human face, and they all went home happy and contented. No less sensational was the so-called Declaration of the Communist Parties of the Socialist Countries, which was issued on this occasion, and at their internationalism, fraternal collaboration, and opposition to imperialism were praised to the skies through a whole torrent of demagogic slogans. There was great ado, especially about the atmosphere of complete sincerity, adherence to principle, friendship and unity, and so on, which, according to them, had prevailed at the meeting. Brezhnev and Zhivkov, Gomulka and Katter, Olbricht and Dubin competed with one another over who could sing the loudest praises. 140. Of the Bratislava document, which was a new foundation stone for the alleged strengthening of the freedom, independence, sovereignty, and equality of the participating states and parties. The participants in the meeting, said the declaration, expressed their complete determination to do everything which depends on them for the further all-round development of collaboration between their countries on the basis of the principles of equality, respect for their national sovereignty and independence, territorial integrity, reciprocal fraternal aid and solidarity. Enthused by the results, Dubin declared very confidently, the economic development of our country can be ensured, and moreover, its security and independence guaranteed only in unity with the socialist countries. The newspapers of Moscow, East Berlin, Warsaw, and Sofia were filled with the decisions of plenums and statements of revisionist chiefs eulogizing the perfect solutions to problems which had arisen amongst them and the measures which had been taken to cope with the world situation. But all this euphoria so artfully built up ended in a great tragedy, in an act of barbarity which repeated the terrible events of the occupation of Czechoslovakia by Hitler. The ink of the signatures to the Charter of Bratislava was not yet dry when, on the orders of Brezhnev, the Soviet tanks attacked Prague and occupied the whole of Czechoslovakia. The plot functioned perfectly. The preparations of Grechko and Yakubovsky for the attack were covered up beautifully by the demagogy of the meeting and the loud clamor of the revisionist propaganda machine. Those who put their trust in Brezhnev's word of honor and in the soothing assurances of his joint conspirators, Olbricht, Gomulka and Zhivkov, paid dear for their naivety. At that time, in the columns of this newspaper we wrote that the Bratislava Declaration is one. Bratislava 19 of the most hypocritical and demagogic documents of the revisionists, and time has proved us right. The General Secretary of the Soviet Revisionist Party was not yet a marshal and had not taken the reins of all the military commands into his hands at that time. Now he has gathered up all the levers of power for himself and put the badges of rank of a marshal of the Soviet Union on his epaulets. Now the new Tsar of the Kremlin is making ready to go to the cardboard castle of mock anti-social imperialism in Bucharest, where he will assemble his conspirators in the Warsaw Treaty. It is expected that communiques and declarations will be signed as usual. Likewise, there will certainly be no lack of fine words in them about friendship, equality, and independent sovereignty. In these documents, it will not be difficult for any of them to register his individual views, just as he will be free, later, to make the interpretations which please him. However, history has proved, also, that the Soviet tanks are not guided by the fairy tales of these declarations, just as Brezhnev is not guided by their morality. The revisionists are utterly uninhibited in their ambitions for expansion and hegemony. The visits which Brezhnev undertakes to different countries of Europe, allegedly friendly or courtesy visits in return for visits made by heads of these countries to the Soviet Union, conceal grave and irreparable misfortunes for the peoples of those countries, for their freedom, independence and sovereignty, and likewise are dangerous for the peoples who are neighbors of those countries which welcome and farewell such conspirators as the inveterate revisionist, Leonid Brezhnev. Any means which serves to establish their domination over the peoples and to rob nations of their freedom. 142. Is usable for the Soviet revisionists. The demagogy and plots, the diabolical smiles and base deceptions of the Soviet revisionist chiefs go hand in hand. One serves the other. Let us not forget the words of the revolutionary Julius Foch, executed by the Czechoslovak communist. People, be vigilant. From the newspaper Ipopolit, November 16,